Hello, Kathy Carlson here at Hartnell College, and we're going to go over the international standards and how they affect or work with the different schemes, matrices, or checklists that we can be audited against in agriculture. So at the top here are the ISO standards, international standards. There's 22,000, and it's also FSSA. I forgot now. 2200 FSSC, I think it is. Okay, these were put into effect in the 40s and then the 60s by Pillsbury. You guys all know what Pillsbury is, Pillsbury dope, right? They wanted to know what was in the food that they were going to be sending up with the astronauts. And we wanted to make sure that there was nothing that could make them sick. So they started the ISO standards, 22,000. There's also ISO standards that affect agriculture, and it's 9001. This is mainly for the inspections and the inspectors. What is the structure of an inspector? There's actually 3 parts. There's the introduction, the inspection itself, which can be paperwork and activities. And in a facility, that would be packing, and in the field, it would also be harvesting and packing. And then you have the closing meeting. And the closing meeting is where you review any observations or corrective actions. All right. These then are a broad spectrum, internationally accepted policy or practice. Like I say, that was put together in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. There's a whole bunch of them. There's one for aerospace, there's stuff for agriculture, there's stuff for electronics. So like I say, when I worked at Hewlett Packard, we were going through this certification process. And so now when I look at it from the agriculture point of view, I go, oh, I know exactly what they're looking for, because I've had a lot of background in it, but in different topics. Okay, so then the ISO standards have made way for other schemes, also called matrix or a checklist. I had a guy who was trying to stump me, and he goes, well, what's the scheme? I go, it's right here. He didn't think I knew what it meant, but I did. Okay, that then generated things like the LGMA, the cantaloupe gaps, the tomato gaps, the avocado gaps. So these were folks that were, for instance, like say down in Southern California, a whole bunch of avocado growers got together and said, let's make a standard that we can then present to the buyers so they'll want to buy from us. Okay? So LGMA, cantaloupe, then you have Primus, you have USDA, you have Global Gap. Global Gap started in the 1990s as Eurogap, because they wanted in Europe to be able to buy produce from Kenya and other countries south of them, but they wanted to make sure that certain standards were followed to their liking. So the International Fruits and Vegetables checklist, it became Global Gap in the 2000s, I believe. Right? And Euro Gap around 2000, they changed it to Global Gap and got everybody to agree on the same principles. So then that was the benchmark. In other words, that's the goal that all of the other checklists in produce were trying to match, to have a world recognition or a world continuous understanding. Make sense? So they have the international fruits and vegetables, which in this checklist, not only do they check that you're using the right plant protection materials, but that the mother tank is stored inside another tank that can hold 110% of what's in the mother tank. Okay, and then there's a bunch of conditionings for labeling as well. The plant protection materials that you use, they want you to do a risk assessment not on just what's going to happen to the environment today, but a year down the line, 3 years down the line, 7 years down the line. And do you really want to use that product if it's going to affect the environment in 7 years or 3 years? Okay, they also have a section in there because of social justice. They wanted to make sure that all of the employees had proper housing and proper bathrooms, place to eat, to the point where the housing is inspected and it can have a dirt floor, but it has to have a people door, dirt floor, people door, and a window. Has to have a roof and a place for either a cot or a hammock. And that's part of the food safety inspection. So here in America, they actually made a specialized one called the Harmonized Produce Safety Standard for North America. It is benchmarked, GFSI. GFSI stands for Global Food Safety Initiative. And for instance, that's what I was working on this morning. And you'll notice it's version 1.2. Okay, another thing that's in the ISO standards, there's several points. One of them is to review your documents, your plan, your program every 3 to 5 years, approximately. The other one is it's called conflict of interest. And what that says is an inspector that goes and inspects a scheme or a matrix, if they see something wrong, they can't say anything except this doesn't meet the requirements in the scheme. I have a lot of growers say, well, they know how to fix it and they won't tell me. That's because of this conflict of interest. If the inspector gave you an option or idea to use to fix it and you used it, then they're auditing their own work, and that's a conflict of interest. Okay? So, with this review process, this was put out, I believe, 2020, and it's 2025 now. So they're going to be reviewing it and updating it. And to do that, they'll have a review committee, which I sit on a couple of review committees, and everybody brings to the table their interests, concerns, or historical knowledge about a particular question, and well, it's being interpreted as this, we actually want it to be reworded so that it's more in this direction, for example. That's just one example. Or this isn't doing what we wanted to do. Let's see, for the USDA, we have called the GAP-GIP, Good Agricultural Practices, Good Handling or Harvest Practices. That one's version 3.0. We have the Harmonized Produce Safety, we have the Harmonized GAP, sorry. They just updated this one this last summer, and they gave us 30 days before they started to audit against it. 37 pages of questions. It was fun. All right, 6.0. They, for instance, on this one, they used to ask for a supplier list, and they split it out into suppliers and services list. So, as part of the questions in the scheme or in the checklist, they want you to list who your approved suppliers are and who your approved services are from. Okay? That's just one example. Okay, under USDA, they also have the harmonized GAP plus, which is GFSI equivalent. It has not made the benchmark requirements yet, but they're working on it. These two are both GFSI. Okay, Primus, theirs is 3.2. That was just revised a few years ago. There's actually several sections. You can pick and choose the sections that works for your operation and get audited against it. If you just grow avocados, you can go to the avocado checklist. Same with tomatoes, same with cantaloupe. And then here, as a part of the outbreak resolution from 2006 in the spinach, as we saw in the video on what was it, CBS Sunday Morning's article. They are GFSI, but they do, I believe it's 13 lettuces and 2 cabbages only. All right, so all of these checklists are then audited by a certifying body. They call it a CB. Okay. That could be, for instance, USDA. And here in California, we go through CDFA, California Department of Food and Agriculture. So CDFA is the secretariat of the scheme, and CDFA does the inspection for them. So then, for instance, if I use any of these CDFA checklists for my clients, CDFA comes out, they ask for a check for their work. When the report is turned in to USDA, USDA sends a separate bill for their work, okay? Whereas if I say go through Global Gap and I use the certifying body, it's called SC. They just send one bill. Okay, other certifying bodies might be, there's a number of them for Global Gap, they have a whole list of them. The others that you may have heard of, it's the National Organic Program, that too is done by the CDFA. And the FSMA is also done by CDFA. Oh, nope, take that back. NOP is not done by CDFA. NOP here in California, it could be QAI, it could be CCOF, it could be Oregon Tilth, etc. All right. Questions? In another class, I had somebody say, okay, well, where does FSMA fit into this? Because all of these checklists get checked by somebody here. These certifying bodies get certified by another certifying body. So there's checks and balances. Whereas FSMA, the Food Safety Modernization Act, signed into law in 2011. Under this umbrella, this is FDA. okay? We have the facilities, which fall under the preventative controls for human food or the preventative controls for animal food, okay? Either of these gets you a PCQI. Preventive controls qualified individual certification. All right, preventive controls for human food, preventive controls for animal food and facilities. Under the FSMA requirements, each facility has to have, according to what they package, store, and process, somebody with one of these certificates on site at all times. So if you're looking to get into the industry and you want to get a certificate that's always yours and you can use it all the time, it's a one and done, this is some place to go. So that's for the facilities. For the farms, we have the Preventative Controls Alliance for the grower training. Okay? This is run mainly out of Cornell, and AFDO gives you your certificates for each of these. These are one and done. They just released Subpart E last year. And that's for your water, both irrigation and post-harvest water sources. It includes the testing and the risk assessments that they're requiring. So for closed systems, like wells, they went annual. Actually, I should restate that. They want it periodically. However, if you can provide a Q1 through Q4, quarter 1 through quarter 4, test results for your closed systems, and if there is no E. coli, you can request to be exempt from this periodic and go back to annual. I'm ready to move. All right, so Subpart E released last year, testing and risk assessment. In the risk assessment, they want your source, how you use it. Would that be drip, overhead, etc.? What products you use. You use or grow. And I'm sure there's a few other things. Also, oh yeah, weather. For instance, flooding or runoff. Again, I think there's more than that, but that'll get you started. Okay, so when I have somebody say, oh, the buyer wants a food safety certificate. Which one should I get? First I ask them, who are they selling to? What are they growing? And how large an operation are they? So then that all depends at that point. If they're a small aggregate, it's probably the GAP-GIP version 3.0. If they're selling to Dole or something like that, then it's gonna be a GFSI benchmarked checklist. Okay? At that point, it doesn't really matter how many acres, but I ask for how many acres because what's their revenue? Any of these are gonna cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 for the inspection alone. And preparing for the inspection, between the tests, we're gonna have product testing for the GFSI, that kind of thing. You're gonna have water testing and lab fees. So I ask them these questions to find out what the buyer wants, so that I can find the right fit for them and to open a market. So that's what my business model is to open markets for growers. Okay, corrective actions. If they find any observations or corrective actions, typically you have 28 days to respond. If it is a health and food safety concern, it could be immediate or it might be put up to 10 days that you have to correct it. So I go on the approach of no doubt. I want to make sure all of our documents are in order, everything that they need is there, so that there's no doubt, because this will slow down them getting their certificate dramatically. And they usually come to me and say, I'm harvesting next week, I need a certificate. And I go, well, it's gonna take about a month. Okay? That's another thing with all of these schemes. We see activities, production, they have to see harvesting in action. Okay, so that means you have to have your workers trained. They have to harvest in front of the inspector, and the inspector will go and interview the employees. And they will ask them questions such as, for how long do you wash your hands? When do you wash your hands? If you feel ill, what do you do? If the paper towels are empty, what do you do? Do you wear gloves while you're working? What's your glove policy? Okay, and that's just a few of the questions that they can ask. It's anything that's in the scheme or the checklist that has to do with workers is fair game for a question. With that, any questions? Okay, thank you.